My name is Margaret Graziano, and I'm the host of Live and Work Liberated. And my wonderful guest today is Ocean Robbins, CEO of the Food Revolution Network, or Food Revolution Network. I'm very fascinated by how food impacts the brain and the effectiveness in life. And so that's your business, Food Revolution.
Yeah.
How does food affect your brain and your effectiveness in life?
Well, in so many ways. I mean, there's an old saying that a person with their health has 1,000 dreams, and a person without it has just one dream, which is to get it back. If you don't have your health, and getting it back becomes the only thing that matters in your life. When you're in constant pain, just getting out of pain is a prayer for so many people. And yet, when you've got your health, then suddenly you have vitality. You can think, you can plan, you can vision for the future. And you can create a business and you can change the world, perhaps.
Yeah.
And it's deeper than just being out of pain, though. Health isn't just the absence of disease. It's optimal function. Your body was meant to thrive. And when you give it the right nutrients, then you can have more energy and more vibrancy and more clarity and more ability to remember the things that matter the most to you, more ability to articulate what's in your heart, more ability to do what you actually were born to do. And so that all in a profound way comes back to the food we eat. When you give your body the right fuel, then it can make the right choices. And your brain is actually critical, but so is your gut. You know, your gut is where neurotransmitters are produced that tell your brain whether or not you're happy, how you're feeling. So nurturing your gut with healthy food in turn nurtures your brain, which is your most vascular organ. It's where 25% of your oxygen goes in your body. So that all comes back to cardiovascular health and blood flow, which all comes back to food.
Yeah, it's so interesting. So I've spent the weekend recording my ebook or my book for Audible, Ignite Culture. And the whole first third of the book is about optimizing the leader within. And it talks about neuroplasticity and how we can train our brain to not be so reactive, and how we can connect with our vision and our values and then make sure that we're on. And food is the fuel for all of that.
Yes.
So that's what was clicking for me. So I was raised by a woman who cooked at home all the time, and we've always eaten healthy. But what I've noticed is that, especially since I've done some cleanses. So while I'm recording, I had vinegar on my salad and I started wheezing. Now in a regular everyday life, I'm not recording myself, so I don't hear the wheezing.
Yeah.
And then I had bread, like gluten, pizza crust. We made it at home, but I was wheezing. And I'm like, how could this happen so fast that we put something in our mouth and our body is reacting that fast? So can you say something about that?
Sometimes we get really fast signals when we start to pay attention. When I was 10 years old, I gave up dairy with my family as an experiment for a month. And that's when I realized that I had had a stuffy nose for my entire life. And I didn't know what it was like to be able to smell. It just I didn't know anything else was possible. I was allergic to dairy, not like dramatically allergic, not like keel over and die allergic, but like it created mucus reactions in my body, inflammatory patterns. And so we find that a lot of people have fast reactions. And sometimes when your gut gets healthier over time and you bring down the inflammation, you can tolerate a little more things that aren't optimal and your body can just deal with it, But over time, the insults kind of add up. And when our body is in a chronically inflamed state, it often is reacting to all sorts of things as invaders that may actually not be. So chronic inflammation is the problem. Now, rapid inflammation can be your lifesaver. But when you're eating foods that consistently are not healthy for you, your body gets in this inflamed state. And the most pro-inflammatory foods are going to be sugars and bottled oils and hyper-processed foods, and processed meats, and red meat is also inflammatory, whereas whole plant foods, particularly omega-3 fatty acids and fiber, are the two biggest things. Those tend to be anti-inflammatory.
So if I'm experiencing a lot of stress at work and I can't manage it, I might need to go back and look at what I'm eating.
Absolutely.
Because I know inflammation helps us not fight stress.
Right.
Like it turns into you have to say it. You're better at that.
Well, the thing that is important to remember here is that, yes, sometimes food can be a way to solve an acute problem. I'm feeling like crap. What do I do? Eat better. And sometimes you get results fast. I mean, with some things like blood pressure, a change in diet can bring down blood pressure in a matter of a few days. Diabetes measures, your A1C markings can change in a matter of a few days, dramatically so, faster than drugs, in fact, and more healthfully than drugs. So I'm not,
cheaper,
the kind of drugs I'm talking about here.
Yeah.
I'm talking about pharmaceuticals. But what's fascinating too is that it's the long game that we really have to think about with food, because in most cases, you're not going to like radically change how you think, except from placebo effect from changing your diet. But over time, it adds up to the difference between whether you're sharp as a tack or not. And, we know that over half of our seniors over age 85 have Alzheimer's disease in the United States. Wow. Over half. We think it's so normal that we just think it's an inevitable sign of aging that people are going to deteriorate mentally. And yes, some deterioration is inevitable, but you can slow it dramatically. One study out of Rush University found that people who ate vegetables, 3 or more servings per day, had 11 more years of healthy brain function. 11 years, right? Of healthy brain function, not just survival, but healthy brains. Another study, 2.5 years from eating blueberries regularly. What happens if you eat blueberries and greens? What if you add to that you also eat less of the processed foods and sugars and processed meats and red meats? What if you also add to that you're going to eat more omega-3 fatty acids? You put all that together, and we haven't even scratched the surface of what's possible for brain health.
So I have so many questions to ask you. Clearly you're very passionate, and everybody wants to work with a CEO that is this passionate about their calling. And I'm thinking business standpoint, if we want our employees to be sharper, more effective, then we need to start teaching them about health and about how to eat right. And I know some companies are getting rid of the vending machines and getting rid of the Coca-Cola, but still, like, I go to a company to do a talk and they bring in snacks and it's not healthy snacks. And sometimes they're feeding us pasta at lunch and no salad or fried chicken. And I'm thinking, this is completely incongruent with you saying you want people to think different. So let's take a step back for a minute. What I talk about in my book is that individuals need a calling or a reason for being or a personal noble cause. What would you say yours is?
I want to change the way the world eats. I want healthy, ethical, and sustainable food for all. At a deepest level, I want to bring more love and joy into the world. I think that too many people are losing their lives and their memories and their health way too soon. And that's having a crippling effect on families and communities. I also want a sustainable world. And I know that what we eat affects not just us, but people in communities around the globe. So I founded Food Revolution Network, which is a for-profit business, because I want to change the way the world eats. And I think we can do that most effectively leveraging entrepreneurship. I ran a nonprofit for 20 years, and we did a lot of great stuff with 65 leaders in 65 countries around the globe, but it was always limited by the need to raise money. And I said, my gosh, what if money could be built into our business model? So the more we sell, the more good we do for the world.
Great.
And so that's what we've been trying to do, is to sort of walk the talk of congruency. So our mission is healthy, ethical, sustainable food for all. And along the way, we want to have a healthy, ethical, sustainable organization. We want to contribute to health for our community and for the planet, as well as ethics and sustainability. And the question is, can we do all of that while having a thriving enterprise that actually is successful as a business?
And can you?
So far, so good.
So you've got this personal calling, which is really grounded in love. And it sounds like relationships and family. And then you have a business noble cause, which, say it again, creating healthy,
ethical, sustainable food for all.
That's awesome. And so that's clearly, you are a very passionate, intrinsically motivated human being. And you're running this nonprofit and you're struggling for money. And you say there's got to be a better way, which to me is what conscious capitalism is about. It's what B Corp is about. It's what keen alignment is about. What's your noble cause? And then how do you assemble other human beings to want to join in that noble cause? So what are some of your values that you hire for, that you manage for, and that you operate with to make sure that your company is delivering on healthy, sustainable food for all?
Okay, well, I knew you were going to ask me this, so I went ahead and pulled up. Here's our. I'll just read our our core values here. So when we say healthy, we say a whole foods, plant-based and comprehensive lifestyle approach to preventing and reversing disease and expanding vitality and wellness. When we say ethical, we say food that's grown, manufactured, processed, and delivered in ways that are kind, conscious, and respectful to humans, animals, and ecosystems. When we say sustainable, we mean food and lifestyle choices and policies that contribute to a stable climate, that don't pollute or poison the world, that protect water supplies, topsoil, forests, and biodiversity, and that support a healthy world for current and future generations. And we say for all, we believe access to affordable, healthy, and wholesome food is a human right. We work for policies and choices that support the well-being of all people, including historically marginalized communities that are suffering disproportionately from the negative effects of race and class divides. We support fairness, opportunity, and health for everyone. And we try to bring this forth with values within our own company that include sustainability within our culture, diversity, which we look at as not like how to have a pretty annual report, but how to harvest the benefits of diverse perspectives and views and cultures to help us better accomplish our mission. Visionary, we want to be guided by a vision of what we're standing for, not what we're against. I believe that we tend to create what we look towards. And so we're trying to always be rooted in positive vision of what's possible. Trustworthy. We want to be regarded with trust and respect, which means we start with facts first, not ideology. Accountable. We want to be accountable to the agreements that we make and the commitments we make internally, as well as in the world. So people do what they say they're going to do. And we have a culture where if you need to renegotiate, that's fine. But you absolutely need to be accountable to your word. Collaborative. We want to work with each other. Always ask who else needs to be a part of this, what stakeholders are involved, how do we work together for synergy. Respectful. So we interact with kindness and care and respect in our interactions, being both honest and truthful and forthright, having those hard conversations when we need to, but also at the same time doing so with kindness and care towards people's feelings and towards the well-being of the whole. Mission driven. So we want to just help everybody always remember what it's for. It's easy in a business context to get focused on the bottom line and make money the central driving force of a business. And we have a lot of forces in our world that have, I think, made money more important than human life, more important than the survival of our planet itself. And I believe money is a means to an end. It is not an end in itself. So we want to always keep circling back to like, what is the mission, and reminding our team of that, even while, of course, we got to pay the bills and the bottom line is critical, but it's not the whole story. In fact, it's not even the most important story. Proactive, which is like entrepreneurial culture where we value personal responsibility. And also we're proactive about solving problems and looking for gaps. We want everybody thinking about where there's gaps in the system. So it's not like saying, oh, it wasn't my job, so it crashed and burned. That's not good enough. Like we want the kind of people who see problems in the ecosystem and fill those gaps, because there's all kinds of things that have to be done that aren't on anyone's job description, but they still got to get done, right? So being proactive, being positive, again, back to like focusing on not just indicting the status quo, but also being forward moving. And that includes in human interaction. So we want to make sure that, there was a study done on marriages, and they found that marriages were like 3 times more likely to survive when they had like past 10 years, if they had a strong positive to negative ratio. So when people express thank yous and appreciations, far more likely that they're going to be around together and happy together years later. And you know how you feel when someone appreciates you. So creating a culture. So in every team meeting, we have a gratitude, shout outs, and high fives at the end where people can just appreciate other people, free popcorn style on the team. And we actually try to make sure that the people who are not appreciated often get appreciated too. So our leadership team is responsible for kind of like tracking it to make sure that nobody's really getting left out on a consistent basis. But those appreciations are just so important for building goodwill and connection on a team. Self-reliance, which is that we want to help individuals to be responsible for their own choices. And we also want team members to be reliant. It's not a culture where anyone's focused on passing the blame. It's about how do you take responsibility for your own experience. And by the way, that also includes even things like team member happiness. Like as a company, we want our team members to be happy. We want a healthy culture, but we're not going to be babying people and making ourselves responsible for everybody's happiness. Sometimes people have hard times in life, but we want to create a culture that helps them respond to those resiliently. So for example, our head of culture recently, we had a team meeting where she asked the question, how are you taking care of yourself? And team members shared about their self-care strategies. And it was just such a lovely frame, because it wasn't like, how is this company responsible for taking care of you? It's how do we create a culture where self-care is respected and lifted up and valued. Evidence-based, which is that we really believe in data, both for our choices. We do split testing, up like insane amounts of split testing on all of our launches. And, we want to see what actually works in the marketplace for revenues, for leads, all of that, but also data in terms of the issues we talk about, where we will always want to be led by the facts on food. And then inclusive, which means that we want to, include diverse cultures and communities. She's checking to see if I've got
how many more
left.
do you have?
I'll go quick here because I know I'm going on. Food focus. So, we are focusing on a lot of issues, but because we're Food Revolution Network, we have to keep coming back. Yep. We don't want to get sidetracked by the latest controversies in the medical world. We have to keep focusing on
politics, probably is easy to do.
Or politics, right? Like there's so many divisions in the world, and we want to bring people together. And then compassionate. So that's like we want to have kindness towards people and towards ourselves.
So there's so many things that you said.
Yeah.
And companies that we work with, we actually teach them to think the way you think. So bravo, applying everything. So I know Ocean a little bit from personal life. I've seen him at conferences around transformation, and my calling is to forever liberate the human spirit. And so I could see just in everything you're doing, you're about liberation as well. And what I love is, in an ideal culture, it is about achievement. Achievement isn't the end of everything, but without it, you don't have a business. Right. And that's why you stopped doing nonprofit, because you were begging and pleading for money rather than making money. So achievement's part of the Food Revolution Network's culture. So is humanistic. You're a very humanistic organization based on what you're saying and how you share, and that you even have a head of people or a chief of culture. So humanistic is about caring fundamentally about the health and well-being of my people. The third dimension, or the third element of a high performance, healthy, intentional culture is affiliative, where people are sharing their knowledge and they're working together, and they're picking up a box that's in their way, and they're pitching in, and they're not like, well, that's not my job, which you definitely have. And the fourth piece is self-actualization, which is I get to be my highest and best self. I care about what the Food Revolution Network does, and I'm part of it. I'm not a cog in the wheel. I'm part of it. So my question is, do you have any openings? Because I want to apply. No, but when you're hiring, how do you make sure people aren't just coming there because, oh, it's Ocean Robbins and, oh, I want to lose weight? How do you make sure the people who come to work for you truly care intrinsically about what you're doing? How do you do that?
Well, I mean, so I'll say in hiring, like there's a couple major elements there. You hire for people, and you also hire for skills. And third is resume. But to be honest, skills is more important. I'd rather have somebody who can learn how to do something and is the kind of person that will succeed than somebody who's done it 1,000 times before.
So I would call that behaviors.
Sure.
Okay, absolutely. So how do you determine if they have them?
So, and like values alignment is critical, but I will say you don't have to sign a purity pact and say, oh yeah, I'm a 7th degree vegan to work for Food Revolution Network. Like we have all kinds of eaters on our team, and they all know that they're part of something that matters in the world. And that's more important to some than others. It's important to everybody. But for some people, it's like their life's passion is to change the way the world eats. For other people, they're a techie or they're, whatever it is. And this is a good way that they get to use their skills for good in the world, right?
Yeah.
But we do want people that are able to listen, that are able to communicate respectfully and forthrightly, that have self-responsibility and accountability. And so some of the things, we have a whole fairly in-depth screening process. We typically get like 500 applications when we open the position.
Wow.
We're trying to figure out how to use AI to like screen through the first bunch of those, because I know a lot of companies do actually have the first screening.
I have an assessment I'll share with you that is a great way to screen. You can go from 1,000 candidates to 25.
Yeah.
But you have to say what it is that you want. Like for me, it's integrity. For me, it's self-awareness. I need people who are self-aware, because we're dealing with a lot of people who are not self-aware. So if the consultant isn't self-aware
Right.
and the client isn't self-aware, we're not getting very far out of the box.
Yeah, totally.
So when you have an opening, you put it on your website because, you know,
we use Workable, and we promote through that. And then for really high significant roles, we'll actually run some ad money to it, like on LinkedIn or in Workable itself, just to get more out there. And you know, and what I've learned, if you don't know what you want, it's very hard to get it.
Yes.
So getting the right position description and clarity about what you're actually looking for is such a big part of it. And I'll be honest, we've had a few times when we hired the wrong person and we're like, oh my gosh, we didn't ask for what we needed. You know, we really didn't. We're figure it out. Like, we need something different here. Okay, the real skill set we need, we didn't even say. So sometimes you figure that out along the way, but you got to keep learning and keep improving. And personally, I'll say, like, part of my job I hate the most is role descriptions. Like, it just drives me nuts to like go over that. So we got other people that focus there more. I read them, but like, I don't know. There's something about that detail that just isn't where my brain shines.
Well, so this is not about me pitching you, but we have a proprietary process called role alignment. And every role in the organization connects to the noble cause. And we have it's all online. It's evergreen. So anybody who does that in your company, we can help because we used to do something called conscious hiring. Now we changed it to keen hiring, just for marketing purposes. But it is about bringing our highest level of consciousness to connect to the candidate's highest level of consciousness. So as we know, as we're all aware, the Great Resignation has had more people leave their jobs last year than ever before in the history of labor. People want purpose and meaning. So how do they find? Do you have on your website when you have openings? Do they just go to your website to the careers page?
There is a link from foodrevolution.org to see. As of this moment, I don't think we may have one opening, but whenever there's something there, it's like there's a link to go see what we have.
Good.
And of course, people can check back periodically. And you know, we have about 25 staff currently. We're not in a big hiring phase right at this moment.
Right. Nobody is right now.
But, you know, I do feel like we have a wonderful team. I think we have, in the last 5 years, we've maybe lost one person that we actually wanted to keep.
Great.
Like, or a couple, like for the most part, people haven't left, which I'm really grateful for.
Good.
You know, I think that any organization that wants to be kind and compassionate sometimes may struggle with the question of how do you also have rigor?
And accountability.
And we love to, it's much easier to say great job than not so great job to somebody, you know, when you're wanting to lift them up. And so a lot of us struggle with how to have those hard conversations in honest ways that really create accountability. But obviously it's critical because if you don't, then you get bitter and resentful rather than, and that pollutes the environment and people want our team wants honest feedback. Like everybody does.
It pollutes the environment. And it brings the energy down because the ones who are carrying the load start to resent the ones who are not. And what I've learned the hard way, because my pendulum has swung from allowing, you know, when I owned a recruiting company, I had 14 staff. My overhead was huge. It was right like the day of 9/11. And out of a $5 million revenue, I was producing 4.5 million. I was a raging bitch. I hated my boss and I was the boss, but I had all those people who weren't producing. And I hired a consultant and he said, which one of your parents was the alcoholic? Because you're creating codependency here. And so I've had a long journey of no accountability, then too much accountability. And now I'm realizing, and this is the work we do with our clients, me not holding someone accountable is actually allowing them to die on the vine. It's like not taking care of the fruit, because they really know they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. They know it intrinsically and they're waiting. Anyway, that's a little bit of a diversion. So great job creating the kind of culture and the environment that supports your noble cause. And it sounds like you've built some architecture, which is how you hire. And what are other architectures? So part of our model is you have the intent, which is your noble cause. You have what kind of energy do we want to create, which if we're changing the world, we need high energy, high passion. We need to tap into the collective genius of all of our people, but we also need structure and systems like hiring processes. What else are you doing that other leaders can hear from you to make sure that you're creating the environment to support your noble cause?
So one of the things we do that I think is a bit unique, not super unique, but we do an annual survey of all of our team members to assess how are we doing as a company.
Good.
And what's the culture. And we ask questions like, do you believe that somebody at work really cares about you? Has anyone has a manager appreciated you in the last 30 days? Do you feel confident that if you had a HR complaint, it would be taken seriously? Do you know how to file grievances or complaints if you feel the power is not being held responsibly? Do you feel that this organization is sincerely committed to diversity and equity and inclusion? Do you feel like there are equal opportunities for advancement for people regardless of race or gender? Do you feel like you have an upward growth trajectory that you can envision? Good questions.
And the last one I like the best. Do you feel like you have an upward trajectory that you can envision your future? So also you have meetings, you mentioned meetings, and in these meetings, different things happen. And so can you share a little bit about, you have a remote workforce? Yes.
100%
Can you share a little bit where, in what kind of geography are people spread out, and how do you bring them together to remember to check in and stay conscious to the cause?
So our team is, technically it's all US, but more and more we have people that are realizing the benefits of remote work. And we've got people living in Malta and Greece and, various places, South America, and working. And frankly, you can't even tell as long as they show up. What we do is we create a certain amount of hours that are overlap hours where people need to be on so we can interact with each other. So the way we've structured it is between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. Pacific time, or noon and 6 p.m. Eastern time, Monday through Thursday. People should be reachable 80% of the time during those hours.
That's a great formula.
And and if they want to live in Europe, they can, but they're going to be working some evenings, like 4 days a week, and that's fine, but,
and then what kind of meetings do you have? It sounds like you're really unique in the kinds of meetings and the agendas that you have. So just give us a sense, specifically, meetings that breed accountability and meetings that breed inspiration.
So accountability we breed through mostly one-on-ones between team members and their managers, which are weekly in most cases, sometimes a little less frequent, but generally weekly. And then we have every sub-team has weekly meetings. We try to limit those to like a half hour. So they're really, every meeting has to have an agenda, by the way.
Good.
It's one of our critical pieces, because if you step in and create the agenda at the start, you've already wasted 5 or 10 minutes. And you may not get to the things that you really need to. And sometimes meetings didn't need to happen. Because there wasn't an agenda. Okay, fine, cancel.
We don't know what we're doing. We probably shouldn't do it.
There isn't a need. Let's not do it, right? Because death by meetings, right? We all know that. It's like
Patrick Lencioni.
And the thing is, connection is awesome, and purpose and growth and collaboration are awesome, but meetings suck. So what's the difference, right? And we try to create a culture where we start every meeting generally with a brief check-in, real quick. How's everyone doing? Because we just want to know. If your mom just died, we want to know that, right? Like we want to know where people are, but it's real brief, sort of pulse check, if you will. And then we get into the topics, and we always have a facilitator, somebody who's responsible for making sure we get it done. And it's the manager if it's just a meeting one-on-one. And then, we have a core team meeting, which is all our full-time staff once a week for about an hour, a little bit less. And that's where, we typically we focus a lot on culture there. So we'll have a question of the day, and often we'll go and each person will answer it, like 30 seconds each, minute each. And it's something that kind of drops in a little bit in an interesting way to like your values, to what you care about, to what's real in your life, without going too deep in 30 seconds or a minute, right? And then we'll have time for some topics. We try not to do updates in meetings. We try to do updates.
What do you mean, try not to do updates?
Like if we're going to do a report on how a launch is going, or a product strategy,
it's
or
a separate meeting.
Something. Well, actually, we would try to do that in a Loom video. Or an email to everybody, so that people can absorb it on their own time.
That's great.
But if we're all together, the culture is the point, not data transmission. You can transmit data in other formats, and people will absorb it at different speeds. But inspiration transmission maybe is an appropriate use of a meeting. So
this is good stuff.
So if I tend to be the inspiration person because I'm pretty passionate about this. So often we have like 5 minutes for Ocean to inspire everybody.
And in my book, I say it is the CEO's job. Like that is, and I have clients who are like, I don't want to do the staff meeting. I don't want to do the Monday morning kickoff. I'm like, well, you don't have a choice. It's your company.
Right.
Your job is to breathe life into people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
So I want to take
one more thing. I just want to say, my business coach said to me a while ago, she was like, I said, I notice I'm multitasking in meetings often. She said, that is a sign that you should not be there. Like if you know, when your brain is bored.
Yep.
And we should make sure that the CEO is present for the meetings where it matters. And I can't say I'm perfect on this. I'm like dealing with a few things. I'm like, oh, let me just check on this while there's a boring moment, right? But in general, it's a good sign that we need to shift it around. So, because if you want to strategize, every minute in a meeting should be important.
Yes.
Like to everybody who's present.
Yes.
And anything less than that is a waste of money, time, energy. And you're actually, when you waste someone's time, you're not just using up whatever dollars they were spent for that hour. You are wasting that. You're sapping their passion.
Yep.
You're turning down their life force and their level of engagement. And then they're less present for everything else.
Yeah, that's great. That's powerful. I think it's chapter 9 in my book, we talk about Donna and the adrenaline bias. And she's a CEO of a busy e-commerce company, and everyone is multitasking in the meeting. And she's leading it. She's not looking at people when they're presenting because their meetings are all about data. But she's bored and she's doing other things. And the message that it sends to her people is that they don't matter. Yeah. So before we end, we've got all this passion, and this is wonderful. You are walking the talk of healthy, intentional, high performance culture. I want you to just share with the audience, how did you get into this? And what sparked this level of passion for food?
Okay. So real quick. So my grandpa founded a little ice cream company, not so little, actually. It was Baskin Robbins. And my dad, John, was groomed to one day join in running it. And he grew up with an ice cream cone shaped swimming pool. And rather famously in his early 20s, as his uncle Bert Baskin was dying of heart disease, he was offered a chance to join in running the company. And he said no. And he walked away from an ice cream fortune, a company that's now valued at over $8 billion.
Wow. To
follow his own rocky road, as we say in our family, and ended up moving with my mom to a little island off the coast of Canada, where they built a one-room log cabin and grew most of their own food and practiced yoga and meditation for several hours a day and named their kid Ocean. And they almost named me Kale, way before Kale was cool. But we did eat a lot of veggies. And a few years later, we moved to California. My dad began working on a book called Diet for New America, which came out in 1987. The media called him the rebel without a cone.
Oh, and that's so funny.
He became his runaway bestseller. He'd walked away from this ice cream fortune. He's now a healthy food advocate. And one of his readers ends up being my grandpa, Irv Robbins, who was dying of heart disease and diabetes. His doctors told him if he wanted to live, he should read a book. And they gave him a copy of Diet for New America, my dad's book. And my grandpa read it. It saved his life.
Wow.
He ended up living 19 more healthy years. And,
wow.
So I was inspired by my dad's example and founded a nonprofit when I was 16 to try to inspire young people to be positive change agents in the world. It was called Yes. It's still going strong today, actually, yesworld.org.
Wow.
And so I directed that for 20 years and had amazing experiences learning with amazing leaders all over the planet. It was all about leadership development at its core. And then, I decided that I was frustrated by the nonprofit model. My family was hit by the Madoff scandal, and my parents had saved up from all my dad's books, and then it was all eviscerated. 98% of their savings were gone overnight.
Wow.
And interesting how tragedy can sometimes provoke opportunity, because as devastating as that was, that's what actually led me to leave the nonprofit, because I was like, wow, I want my parents to be able to retire in dignity. I want to be able to take care of my special needs twins. We're not going to get there on a nonprofit salary over here. So that's when I decided to join with my dad directly in launching Food Revolution Network. It was partly driven by money. It was partly driven by a vision of seeing the impact my dad had had, but realizing that books were not really the only way to change the world. We've got to create online tools and resources. So launching Food Revolution Network was a real innovative strategy. We held our first Food Revolution Summit in 2012, modeled after something a friend of mine had done. And we went from nothing to 30,000 people on our email list and $200,000 in revenues in 3 months.
Wow.
And it's just been growing ever since. But I knew we were onto something, at that moment.
Yeah,
right?
That's evidence. That's the evidence. That's the split testing that works.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. The proof's in the pudding, so to speak. So,
Wonderful.
we've been going ever since then, and the passion just keeps growing deeper for me as I see the impact that it has on people's lives.
Yeah. Well, I could tell just the energy that you even walked into the studio with this morning, which is my house, just emanating. And I know you have a TED Talk coming up. Would you like to just tell us the name of it so people can Google it and find it?
Eating Your Way to Happiness. It's going to be, as we're recording this now, it's going to be released any day now.
Excellent. Eating Your Way to Happiness, Ocean Robbins, the Food Revolution Network, Work Liberated, Ignite Culture. He's an awesome guest to teach people how to do it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you.